Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of history's most epic, multi-generational physical journeys. It's a story of pure survival, massive technological leaps, and an unstoppable momentum that completely redefined a landscape. So, let's dive right in. Just think about this for a second. How did one single group of people manage to fundamentally reshape the second largest continent on Earth? And we aren't talking about a quick conquest over a few decades. This was a staggering, continuous push over more than 1,000 years. To really understand how they pulled this off, we first need to look at exactly what they were up against. Section 1. The African Landscape, a Continent of Barriers. To grasp the sheer scale of the challenge here, you've got to think about the environment. Africa stretches for almost 5,000 miles. It's surrounded by 2 seas and 2 oceans, and it's basically divided into 4 highly distinct and honestly pretty unforgiving climate zones. We are talking about the vast, bone-dry expanses of the Sahara and Kalahari deserts, these massive sweeping savannas, and incredibly dense, practically impenetrable rainforests. For early humans, these weren't just pretty, scenic landscapes. They were monumental physical barriers to movement. But, as we'll see, even these geographical walls couldn't hold back our protagonists. Before we trace their actual steps, let's lock in our key terms so we know exactly who we're talking about. Migration, simply put, is packing up and moving from one region to settle in a totally new one. And Bantu is an absolutely crucial term here. It doesn't describe just a single tribe. It actually refers to a very large group of Africans and the entire related family of languages they speak. So when we talk about the Bantu migration, we're talking about a massive, interconnected linguistic and cultural group making a monumental move. Section 2. The sparks. Why leave home? I mean, if the continent is packed with dense rainforests and scorching deserts, why leave home in the first place? Well, the crucial point here is absolutely survival. Anthropologists point to some incredibly intense pressures that force the Bantu to pack up and move. Imagine living in an area where your population is booming, but the land just can't keep up. They were facing severe overcrowding, which instantly skyrocketed their need for reliable food. Couple that with terrifying, unpredictable climates that led to prolonged droughts and famine. They didn't leave because they just wanted a change of scenery, you know? They left in desperate search of better, more sustainable farmland. They literally had to move to survive. Section 3. The 1,000-year trek. All right, so between 500 BC and AD 1000, these distinct groups began pushing out from their home area in West Africa, and they were bonded by a deep shared culture. They were migrant farmers united by a worldview known as animism. Now, animism is actually the oldest known type of belief system in the world. It even predates paganism. It's the profound belief that objects, places, and creatures all possess a distinct spiritual essence. This shared culture and belief system was essentially the glue that held them all together as they pushed out into the unknown. And as time went on, roughly between 1000 BCE and 500 CE, they didn't just push out a few miles down the road. They used the continent's massive waterways, specifically the Congo and Zambezi rivers, like natural highways. They spread deep into the eastern and southern regions of Africa, navigating directly through and around those daunting natural barriers we talked about earlier. Section 4. Level Up 1. Agriculture and the Banana Boom. Remember those seemingly impenetrable rainforests? Well, the Bantu brought a really brilliant, tangible solution to that problem, the slash-and-burn method. It's a very specific 4-step agricultural innovation. First, they'd cut down a patch of dense forest. Second, they'd burn the cleared vegetation. Third, and this is the genius part, they would mix those nutrient-rich ashes directly into the soil, creating a highly fertile garden area. Now, this fertility obviously didn't last forever. The land exhausted quickly, which leads to step 4. They had to abandon the plot and keep moving. So this farming method physically required them to continuously migrate. Now, the impact of the settled agriculture, it honestly cannot be overstated. When you compare the Bantu to the traditional hunter-gatherer populations they encountered, the difference is night and day. Hunting and gathering provides a pretty limited, often unpredictable food supply. But Bantu settled farming, that brought a reliable, substantial increase in food. And what happens when you have a large, reliable food supply? Exactly. You can support a much, much larger population. And then, out of nowhere, they get a massive assist from a totally unexpected place. Yep, the banana. Originally domesticated in Southeast Asia, the Asian banana entered southern Africa via Indian Ocean sea lanes, and it acted as an absolute superfood for the Bantu. Think of it as the ultimate ancient energy bar.
It provided a highly nutritious supplement that enriched their diets, instantly increasing the available food supply and allowing for an even more rapid, explosive expansion across the continent.
Section 5. Level up to the iron advantage. Okay, so they have the calories, but clearing a dense forest with a stone tool, that is incredibly slow, grueling work, which brings us to our second huge technological leap. Some scholars think North African merchants introduced iron metallurgy to them, while others argue the Bantu actually independently discovered how to smelt and purify iron. Regardless of how they got it, mastering iron production changed absolutely everything. Think about it, an iron axe versus a stone axe. Iron tools let the Bantu chop down forests and clear agricultural land way more efficiently than ever before. This single innovation brought unprecedented population growth and injected incredible momentum into their migration. I really want this number to sink in for a second. 22 million. Thanks to the absolute powerhouse combo of iron metallurgy and the nutritional boost from the banana, the Bantu population didn't just grow, it exploded. They went from a relatively small population of roughly 3.5 million people to an astonishing 22 million. That is the sheer power of technological and agricultural innovation at work on a continental scale. Section 6. A lasting cultural legacy. So, as we wrap things up, we have to look at what happens when 22 million people spread out across an entire continent. The Bantu didn't just pass through, they laid down permanent roots. Their legacy is literally foundational to modern Africa. As they migrated, their cultures spread right along with them. They're the ones who introduced settled agriculture to southern Africa. They generously passed their highly advanced knowledge of ironworking on to the other peoples they met. And they spread their animistic religious beliefs, fundamentally altering the spiritual landscape of the whole continent. And the long-term result of that spiritual spread was profound. We call it religious syncretism. Over the centuries, through trade and conquest, this deep-rooted traditional Bantu animism encountered global religions like Islam and Christianity. But here's the fascinating part. The old beliefs didn't just disappear. Instead, many Africans who converted to Islam or Christianity retained their local traditional animistic beliefs, blending them together into unique, rich, and highly localized religious practices that are still very much alive today. Which leaves us with this final thought. A journey that began 4,000 years ago, driven by the desperate need to literally just survive and find a reliable harvest, ended up completely rewiring the agriculture, the technology, and the spirituality of an entire continent. When you look at the incredibly diverse cultures, languages, and practices across Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa today, you are looking directly at the echoes of those original iron-wielding, banana farming pioneers. So I leave you with this. How does the deep legacy of this 1,000-year trek continue to shape the unique identities and diverse cultures of Africa that we see in the modern world? Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible piece of history. Keep questioning and keep learning.